Billionaire caught the black maid pulling a chain around his wife's neck. What he found out shocked everyone. The sound that froze him wasn't the scream. It was the clinking of metal. Richard Hale stood at the doorway of his marble hallway, his breath caught halfway in his chest. His wife Caroline was on her knees, her face pale, her hands trembling, while a thin silver chain was looped around her neck. And the one holding that chain was their maid, Tasha. Tasha's eyes were wide and wet with panic, her hands shaking as she tried to explain something. But no sound came out. The chain glimmered under the chandelier, pulled just tight enough to leave a red mark across Caroline's throat. "Let her go!" Richard's voice cracked through the silence like thunder. He lunged forward, grabbing Tasha's wrist, yanking the chain away, his heart pounding so loud he could barely think. Caroline gasped for air, clutching her neck, her voice breaking between sobs. She was trying to kill me." But Tasha's head snapped up instantly. "That's not true," she cried. Her voice was desperate, raw. "Mr. Hale, please, listen to me. It's not what it looks like." Her eyes darted toward the floor, toward something small and shining near Caroline's feet. Richard followed her gaze and froze again. It was another chain, but this one had a key attached. Before he could ask what it was, Caroline screamed, "Get her out of here!" Now, guards rushed in, and Tasha was dragged backward, still crying out, "Please, sir! You have to look at the box. The box under the bed. It's not me. It's her." The hallway echoed with chaos, the wife's sobs, the maid's screams, the billionaire's pounding heartbeat, until Richard's world went silent again. He looked down at the floor, at that single silver key glinting under the light, and for the first time in years he realized he didn't know his wife at all. 2 weeks before that terrifying night, Tasha Green had started working in the Hale mansion. She was quiet, careful, and always early. Too early, Richard once thought. Every morning she was already cleaning the glass staircase before sunrise, humming softly under her breath. Caroline said she liked Tasha because she didn't talk too much, and that made Richard suspicious. He had seen too many people hide behind silence, but Tasha never gave him any real reason to worry. She did her work, stayed out of trouble, and never complained, not even when Caroline snapped at her for folding the towels the wrong way. Still, there was something about her eyes. They looked sad, tired, like she was carrying a secret that didn't belong in a house this big. One afternoon, Richard was in his home office when he heard Caroline's voice echoing down the hall, sharp, angry, and fast. "You broke it, didn't you? You stupid girl!" Richard stood up. He stepped out and saw Caroline standing over Tasha, holding a broken porcelain figure in her hand, a tiny dancer with its head cracked off. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Tasha said softly, eyes on the floor. "I didn't mean—" "You didn't mean?" Caroline hissed. "Do you know what this costs?" "You people never understand value." Richard froze. "Caroline, that's enough." His wife turned to him with that cold smile, the kind that never reached her eyes. "Relax, Richard. I'm just teaching her a lesson." Tasha quietly picked up the pieces and walked away. But Richard noticed something. Her hands were shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Anger. Later that night, he passed by the maid's room. The light was still on. Through the half-open door, he saw Tasha kneeling beside her bed, holding a small wooden box in her hands. She looked like she was praying, but her whisper was clear enough for him to hear. "Please, just give me proof before it's too late." Richard frowned. Proof of what? He almost stepped inside, almost, but stopped when he heard Caroline's footsteps coming down the hall. He turned away, pretending he'd seen nothing, but the next morning, the box was gone. And that night, Caroline's behavior changed. She became restless, nervous. She kept checking her phone, locking her bedroom drawers, and whispering to someone on the phone in the middle of the night. By the fourth night, she started hiding something under their bed. And that was the same night Richard woke up to the sound of chains. The next morning, the mansion felt too quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't mean peace, just secrets holding their breath. Richard hadn't slept. Caroline was pretending to. Her breathing was steady, her face turned away from him, but he could see her fingers twitching under the blanket, clutching something small and silver. When she finally got up to take a shower, he did what his mind had been screaming at him to do all night. He knelt beside the bed. The carpet was soft, but his hands trembled as he reached underneath. At first, he felt nothing but dust and cold air. Then something wooden brushed his fingertips. The box. He pulled it out carefully. It was the same small wooden box he'd seen Tasha praying over, the one she told him to look for before the guards dragged her away. The hinges were old, scratched, but the lock was brand new, too new. And hanging from that lock was a tiny imprint, the same shape as the key that had fallen from Caroline's feet the night before. Richard hesitated. His mind raced with questions he wasn't ready to face. What was in this box that made his wife lie? And why would the maid risk everything just to make him find it? He tucked the box under his arm and slipped into his study. The lock clicked open easily once he used the key. Inside were photos, dozens of them. At first they looked ordinary, charity events, company meetings, vacations. But then his eyes froze on the last few. They were pictures of Caroline, but not the woman he knew. In one, she was standing beside a strange man in a parking lot at night. In another, she was handing over what looked like an envelope full of cash. And in the last one, she was holding hands with that same man, standing in front of a storage unit. On the back of the last photo, written in faint pen, were 4 chilling words. She knows what she did. Before Richard could process it, his office door burst open. Caroline stood there, her hair still damp, a towel wrapped around her shoulders. Her eyes landed on the box, then on the open photos spread across his desk. Her face went pale. "Where did you get that?" she whispered. "Tasha told me to find it," he said quietly. "You want to explain?" For a long second, Caroline said nothing. Then her lips curled into a trembling smile. "You shouldn't have opened it." Her voice dropped lower, colder. "Now she's going to come back." Richard frowned. "Who?" Caroline's eyes darted toward the hallway, wide and terrified. "The woman I replaced." Richard's heart slammed in his chest. "What do you mean, the woman you replaced?" he demanded. Caroline backed away slowly, her damp towel slipping from one shoulder. Her eyes darted toward the window like she was expecting someone to appear there any second. "You don't understand," she whispered. "This isn't about me or her. It's about what happened before you even met me." Richard frowned. "You're not making sense." Caroline let out a shaky laugh, one that sounded more like fear than amusement. "Do you remember the woman who used to clean this house before Tasha? The one who disappeared?" He tried to recall, but it had been years. Staff came and went. He couldn't remember her face, only a name. "Ruth?" Caroline nodded, eyes glistening. "She wasn't just a maid, Richard. She was Tasha's mother." The room went dead silent. Richard froze. His mind raced backward. Tasha's first day, her quietness, her trembling voice, her strange prayer. "She came here for revenge," he muttered, but Caroline shook her head violently. "No, no, it's worse. I didn't mean for it to happen. I just—" She stopped. The color drained from her face and she glanced behind him. Richard turned. There in the reflection of the office window stood Tasha. Her uniform was torn, her eyes swollen from crying, but she wasn't running anymore. She was standing tall, her hand gripping that same silver chain. "You killed my mother," Tasha said softly. Caroline stumbled backward, trembling. "That's not true. She left. She quit." "Then why did you bury her contract in the garden?" Tasha's voice cracked, trembling between fury and grief. "Why did you tell the agency she died of illness when she was missing for 2 years?" Richard's world spun. His throat went dry. He turned to Caroline, desperate for some kind of answer, but her silence said everything. He finally spoke, his voice low and shaking. "Caroline, is it true?" Caroline didn't answer. She only whispered, "She shouldn't have come back." And before Richard could move, Tasha stepped closer, her eyes locked on Caroline's. "I didn't come to hurt you," Tasha said. "I came to show him what you really are." But just as she spoke those words, a loud crash echoed from upstairs, the sound of breaking glass. Then a voice, a man's, shouted from above, "Mr. Hale! Don't move! Step away from her!" Richard froze. Caroline screamed. Tasha turned pale. Someone else was inside the mansion. The man's voice thundered again from upstairs. "Mr. Hale! Step away from the woman!" Richard turned toward the staircase, his pulse racing so hard it hurt. A tall man in a black jacket descended slowly, a gun in his hand and a badge clipped to his belt. "FBI," he said sharply. "Don't make this harder than it already is." Caroline gasped. "No, no, not you! You weren't supposed to come here yet." Richard's head snapped toward her. "You knew him?" The agent's eyes cut toward her coldly. "She did more than know me," he said. "We've been investigating her for months." Caroline's face twisted with terror. "You don't understand. She was blackmailing me. Tasha, she's—" "Quiet," the agent barked. "You had your chance." He looked at Tasha now, his tone softening. "We found your mother's file this morning. Your call helped us locate her remains." The room spun. Richard's knees went weak. "Remains?" Tasha's voice cracked. "They found her under the old guest house, didn't they?" The agent nodded once. "Buried beneath concrete. Construction logs show your wife ordered it demolished right after the maid went missing." Caroline screamed. "It wasn't me. I didn't kill her. I just covered it up." The silence that followed was heavy, cruel. Tasha's eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed calm. "You let her die, Mrs. Hale. You watched her collapse while she cleaned that marble floor, and instead of calling for help, you hid her body because you didn't want your precious charity image ruined." Richard stared at his wife, trembling. "Tell me she's lying," he whispered. Caroline looked at him, her lip quivering, mascara streaking down her face. "I just panicked," she said. "It was an accident. But once I hit it, there was no turning back." The agent stepped forward. "You'll have plenty of time to explain at the station." Caroline screamed and tried to run, but Tasha moved first. The chain in her hand flew out like a flash of light and wrapped around Caroline's wrist, stopping her mid-stride. "Not this time," Tasha said, her voice low and steady. For a moment, no one moved. Only the sound of Caroline's ragged breathing filled the air. The agent nodded toward his team at the door. "Take her." Two officers stepped in, cuffing Caroline as she sobbed. "Richard, please. Tell them I didn't mean it." But Richard couldn't move, couldn't speak. He just watched her being dragged away, his perfect wife, the woman he'd trusted with everything, while Tasha stood silently, tears streaming down her face. Then she reached into her pocket and placed something on the desk. It was a small silver locket. Inside was a faded photo of a smiling woman in a maid's uniform, Tasha's mother. "She used to say good people hide behind bad luck," Tasha whispered. "Maybe you're one of them, Mr. Hale." Maybe she turned and walked out before he could reply. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft at first, then heavier. And as Richard stared at the empty doorway, he realized the truth wasn't just about what Caroline did. It was about everything he didn't see. Sometimes the evil you fear doesn't come from strangers. It grows quietly beside you, behind perfect smiles, inside perfect homes, until the truth breaks the silence and you finally see who you've been living with all along.